I'm Jocelyn Anderson with Hungry Hearts Ministries. We're in Revelation chapter 4, beginning with verse 1. After this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven, and the first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet, talking with me, which said, Come up hither, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter. And immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. You know, for the last month or so, we've been taking our time going through the first 3 chapters of the Revelation. And in those first 3 chapters of the Revelation, especially chapters 2 and 3, Jesus is speaking to the churches. The message is to the churches. 1 through 3, the message in the Revelation is to the churches. But now suddenly, the scene shifts from the churches on earth to a scene in heaven. In chapter 4, beginning with verse 1, we see John is in heaven. Now, I will challenge you to read the Revelation and see if you can find the church on earth anywhere during the events described in the book of Revelation until you reach the 19th chapter, when Jesus comes out of heaven and his bride, his church, is with him. You know, we looked at Revelation chapter 3, verse 10, and you can access that video study, where we have a very definitive statement from the Lord Jesus Christ himself that those that belong to him will be kept from that hour of trial, that hour of temptation that is going to come upon the whole earth. And he was speaking specifically to that horrific time of the Great Tribulation, also known as the time of Jacob's trouble, or parallel to the time of Jacob's trouble. So after this, John looked, and the scene shifted to heaven, and he was in heaven. Now, turn to Revelation chapter 19, and you can see in verses 7 all the way down through verse 14, a description of the church, the bride of Christ, coming out of heaven with Jesus to the battle of Armageddon, where he is going to defeat his enemies and then after that establish his kingdom here on earth. So take the time to read that verse. Something else that we need to remember. In chapter 4, verse 1, John was told, I will show thee things which must be hereafter. Absolutely everything that happened after the 3rd chapter of the Revelation, because Jesus gave a message to the churches that were in existence at that time. And it was also can be expanded to include the churches down through all time, especially that message to the churches in existence just prior to the second coming of Jesus Christ. But beginning in chapter 4 of the Revelation, everything is things which must come to pass hereafter. I will show thee things which must be hereafter, future. Now, John was told that the Revelation was a prophecy. In chapter 1, he was told that the vision was going to be shown to him to show him things which must shortly come to pass. Well, you know, shortly with God isn't the same thing as shortly with us. With us, a lifetime is an extremely long time, but with God, it's a vapor. Here today, gone within moments. So let's don't limit God by our own finite human understanding of things, and certainly let's don't define God by our definitions. I don't believe we can define who our God really is and what our God really is. We can see aspects of him. He reveals to us in his word, the Bible, things he wants us to know about him. But can we truly understand the fullness of our God? I don't know. I doubt that. And also in verse 3 of chapter 1 of Revelation, blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of what? This prophecy. It is a future. It is a vision for the future. And this is underscored in chapter 4, verse 1, when John is told, I will tell you things which must be hereafter. And immediately he was in the Spirit, and beheld a throne set in heaven. He was in heaven. He was caught up to heaven. You know, don't we hear a lot being talked about these days about being caught up? In 1 Corinthians chapter 12, Paul related an experience that we believe he's speaking about himself, that he knew such a man, whether in the body or out of the body, he cannot tell. This man was caught up to the third heaven. All right? Now, there is one interesting thing that we need to pay attention to here. This man was caught up to the third heaven. But look, he was shown unspeakable things and heard. He was caught up into paradise. He heard unspeakable words, which what? Which it is not lawful for a man to utter. In other words, he wasn't allowed to tell what he saw and what he heard. Now, there's a lot of talk these days. Lots of folks are being caught up into heaven. They're coming back and they're describing everything in vivid detail. They're using their experience to teach doctrine about what heaven is and what heaven isn't, and even other things in the Bible that don't directly refer to heaven itself. This isn't right. It's unbiblical. This man that was caught up to heaven was not allowed to share what he saw in heaven, and he certainly wasn't allowed to use it as a basis for teaching doctrine. Paul did not teach doctrine. It wasn't revealed somewhere within the law and the prophets of the Old Testament. I challenge you to find one doctrine that he taught that somewhere we can't find a type of it, a picture of it, or a direct reference to it in the Bible. You know, well, someone said, well, what about the doctrine of the rapture? You can't find that in the Old Testament. Oh, yes, you can. And we're going to talk about that in our studies. If the Lord tarries long enough when we finish the study of Revelation, we're going to move on to other books of the Bible. So let's read the Bible every day, always picking up today where you left off yesterday. And remember, everything in the Revelation from chapter 4 on is for hereafter. It is a future prophecy. Yes, even Revelation chapter 12. So hang in there with me. We'll get there.